guess what? This is going to be the least scientific home theater speaker package review ever. And not because these speakers are bad. On the contrary, they're pretty amazing. It's just that I didn't do my part. I didn't set these up properly. I didn't allow these speakers to shine in the most ideal scenario. And I'm not going to. I have complained at length about the built-in in our family room. The built-in houses our TV, speakers, books, and a fireplace. It's just the worst. I hate the thing. A brief rundown. The built-in was here when we bought the house, and it was sort of a standout feature wall in the family room, and we thought it was a nice thing. But whoever built it wired up the room for 7-channel sound and then just enclosed all the wiring with the built-in and made no provisions for changing things out in the future. None of the wires were labeled, and if you were to try to get to any of the cables or the plug outlet behind the built-in, you would have to access it through a small opening inside a cabinet that you could maybe just sneak an arm in, and it'd be better if you were Manute Bol and you had really long arms, or you'd have to be a small child. I don't know why they did it. It's one of the worst things. Internet comes through cable, which is in a port behind the fireplace on that same wall. And if you want to access any of that stuff, you have to yank out the fireplace and maybe you'll get to it. But every time we've yanked out the fireplace, something goes wrong, like the fireplace doesn't work. The whole thing sucks. I really, really hate it. The worst thing about the built-in is that it's shallow in depth, and that makes finding speakers to fit in that built-in really difficult. The smallest speakers I have are the Q Acoustics 3020i, and those are on the large side of things for the built-in. They barely fit. The shallow depth also forced me to source a shallow depth receiver. My video, Where the Heck Are the Small AV Receivers, chronicled that whole debacle. In any case, I netted out on the Sony STR790. It's a shallow depth AV receiver. It does the job. It's okay. It's not the greatest thing. The built-in also has a provision to hang a TV, and the largest TV that we can fit in that space if you want to have electronics below is 50 inches. The family room, incidentally, is about 25 feet long by 15 feet wide. It's fairly big. At the viewing distance, I think it's about 20 feet back from the TV. A 50-inch TV is way too small. Needless to say, it's been struggle city trying to find speakers that fit in and on the shelves of that stupid built-in. I spent countless hours online Googling speakers that would fit. My search terms were small, shallow depth speakers in white. And I was able to find some things, but not a lot. What I ended up doing was using the Q Acoustics 3020s as my fronts and the 3090 Ci as the center channel speaker. That did the job, but I couldn't find any other surround speakers, and Q Acoustics doesn't have any shallow, slim wall mountable speakers in the 30i range. They have smaller bookshelves, but those are still fairly deep, and I don't feel good about wall mounting bookshelf speakers. They just, I don't know, for some reason, I feel like they would just fall off the walls, and it's not what I'm looking for. And then my editor mentioned Aperion Audio for a review. And when I contacted Aperion Audio, they mentioned their Novus line of speakers. And when I took a look at them, I was floored. I mean, these speakers didn't show up in my search at all. And so maybe they need to fix their SEO or something. But these speakers seem perfect. And at first, Aperion was like, hey, we have floor standers, bookshelves, and we really think the floor standard would work. But I was like, could I get the bookshelves? Because the bookshelves were the big standout for me. They were exactly what I was looking for. Aperion was kind enough to go through their lineup with me and help me figure out what I could use ideally for my setup. They have a full range of speaker sizes in the Novus line, from floor standers to bookshelves and surround options. Since all of the wiring in our built-in is existing and fixed, I went with a simple 7.1 setup consisting of the N5B bookshelves, the NSC 3-way center channel, the N65R slim satellite on-wall for rear duties, and the A5 Atmos immersive reflective height module speaker, All of the speakers are finished in their off-white. The finish is sleek and elegant, and the cabinets feature curved tops for a distinct appearance. All of the speakers feature magnetic grills, gold-plated binding posts, and a cool tweeter adjustment feature where you choose the standard voicing or a -3 decibel setting for a more mellow treble response. The bookshelves were immediately a standout for me. A diminutive, shallow-depth front-ported speaker. It is sized 7.1 inches wide by 11.8 inches high by 7.9 inches deep. It features a 5.25-inch aramid fiber cone driver with a 1-inch silk dome tweeter. The tweeters are surrounded by an aluminum faceplate and a metal grill. The woofers have a rubber surround that conceals the mounting screws. The slotted reflex port is on the bottom and reduces air leak and increases bass output. Frequency response is 45 Hz to 35 kHz. Impedance is 4 ohms, and sensitivity is rated at 85 decibels. The impedance and sensitivity ratings did give me pause, especially given the relatively low-powered receiver they would be paired with. They fit perfectly into the shelves with just enough space around them. The center speaker comes through with two 5.25-inch woofers mated to the same tweeter, but it adds a 4-inch aramid fiber mid-range driver to the mix. Frequency response is 55 Hz to 35 kHz. Impedance is 4 ohms and sensitivity is again 88 decibels. The N6 SR Slim Satellite deviates with a 6.5-inch driver and a sealed box design. These are the ones I chose to wall mount. Frequency response is 60 Hz to 35 kHz. Impedance for these is 4 ohms and sensitivity is 86 decibels. And lastly, the A5 Atmos height speaker rounds out my selection. It utilizes a concentric design with a tweeter sitting inside the woofer. I place these on the top shelf pointing inward. Frequency response is 90 Hz to 30 kHz. Impedance is 6 ohms and sensitivity is 87 decibels. The connected equipment is an Apple TV 4K, a non-4K 50-inch TV, the Sony SDR790, and a Q Acoustics QB12 sub connected with the SVS SoundPath. Usually, I'm tasked with setting these speakers up in a very favorable position so I can get the best out of these speakers and do my review based on all of that. But selfishly, I had no plans to do that at all. The size of the bookshelf fits perfectly on the bottom shelf just above the cabinets. It sits just about ear height and it's amazing. The center speaker is set up in the least ideal position. It is atop the, I guess, what do you call it? It's on top of the fireplace, mantle of the fireplace, just below the TV, next to the AV receiver, shoved into that build-in. It's about 5 feet off the ground, and the front baffle of the speaker has a slight upward angle, so that is to align the tweeter and the bass drivers so they're a bit more seamless. But it gives the impression that maybe it's slightly up firing, where if you had them on like a media stand in front of you, just a few feet in front of you, it'd be like projecting up towards your ears. Now it's just projecting up towards the ceiling. And it's, again, 20 feet in front of me, sitting higher than the bookshelf speakers. It's the least ideal position. The other speakers are the slim surrounds, and I have them on the back wall up close to the ceiling because that's where the wires came in, and I tried to yank on them, and there was no give. That's about as far as they're going to go. I did look into potentially hacking so you can like extend speaker wire and have the speakers lower, but the height speakers or the Atmos module speakers, they sit way up top, and I have them just tilted onto their sides, kind of into the living room. And that's how I have everything set up. The wires in this stupid building aren't labeled at all. And so I had to just give it a go and try to set it up and try to get it right however I could. And somehow I got it set up perfectly the first time. It's friggin' great. I absolutely love it. I'm actually a bit blown away by how good the speaker package sounds in our room. I was concerned about the impedance and the sensitivity of these speakers, and that's really a non-issue. Like, I don't notice any distortion or any power loss on these speakers. Everything sounds really, really good, and the receiver is able to power these no problem. The only tweaks I do make are to the subwoofer. On some days, it feels like it dominates things, and on other days, it just needs a boost. So I just reach out behind the couch and just augment the volume up or down, and I'm off to the races. The family room is the most used room in our house. It's where our kids go to watch TV and veg out. And so we watch a lot of Teen Titans Go, a lot of Barbie, a lot of SpongeBob SquarePants, and a lot of Pokemon. I hate Pokemon. I do get the feeling that a more robust amplifier would be able to squeeze out more performance from these speakers. I have the Aperion Audio Energy 7-channel power amplifier on hand, but there's no way that beast is going to fit into the building. I also have the Marantz Cinema 70, and I had illusions of sticking that receiver into this building and just replacing the Sony, but that doesn't quite fit either, so I'm a little SOL here. And the Sony doesn't have pre-outs on any of the channels, so adding an external integrated amplifier, not happening. On a day-to-day listening basis, these speakers perform really, really well. Dialogue is always exceptionally clear, and the soundstage feels full and immersive. And at times, my wife and I have to ask the kids to turn down the TV because it's hard to carry on a conversation in the adjoining kitchen. Into the Spider-Verse 1 and 2, the intro for the first movie is one of my favorite movie intros ever. Just like the sound of it is just amazing. And both of these movies feature a ton of effects and play well with a multi-channel system. The Novus system conveys and separates all of the effects wonderfully, and the dialogue remains crisp and clear. And never once did I hear any audible distortion, even when I had this turned up really, really loud. Interstellar, one of my favorite movies to test a home theater package with. It has a little bit of everything, quiet moments, and then big explosive scenes. And one thing I noticed was dialogue, even with a lot of stuff going on, really came through nice, crisp, and clear, especially in the lower registers where I thought a little bit of that would be missing with smaller speakers. All of that came nice and clear. And when things really kicked in and things were exploding or going through wormholes, I was treated to a nice, big, large soundstage. I just wish that I had a bigger TV. And because we're using an Apple TV, we have access to Spotify. And because my daughter's 8, she has her own playlist on Spotify, which is mostly Taylor Swift. She's a bit of a Swiftie. So I engage the amplifier into multi-channel stereo, and we create a dance party in our living room. And my daughter Winnie just does cartwheels and dances around, and it's tons of fun. You could use a 2-channel mode, but given the size of our living room and the speakers in play, it makes more sense to engage all of the speakers versus 2-channel because it would just sound better. For my purposes, there's a track by Rhyming in Fives called Glimmer. It's a beautiful ambient-ish track, and it's all the feels played with this system and just plop down on the living room couch, taking it in. At the end of the day, the fact that I didn't set these up properly or in the most ideal situation didn't matter one lick. They're amazing speakers and they sound it. And it's really, really good value for the money. And if you're looking for a speaker package that doesn't cost an arm and a leg, this is the one. And if you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing. I'd really appreciate it.